Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for being with us. Faith That Does Justice continues this series of fireside chats. And our topic tonight is going to be poverty, immigration, and homelessness, the confluence of these three topics that tend to affect one type of people, be that recently arrived immigrants, be it poverty, people in poverty, and also people of color. So we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that. I'd like to go forward by really announcing how this fits into our mission. A Faith That Does Justice is a nonprofit interfaith organization that really looks to raise consciousness about social issues that affect the most vulnerable among us, and at the same time, trying to reach out to people in need. We do that various ways. Perhaps as far as the educational piece, it's this fireside chat that we found to be very helpful in terms of helping people to understand that there are issues, there are people who are suffering, not just around the world, not just in this country, but right here in Boston as well. Our reaching out, we really run three different programs. We have an ESOL program, English for Speakers of Other Languages, where we target recently arrived people, trying to get them language skills, and intuitively known, but it has been proven that people who have English language skills make more money in the workplace than people who don't. And that's a big problem for a lot of people who are coming in here who do not have English skills or much education. And then we also run, every Saturday, we run a community meal here for Spanish-speaking people. And what I found is over the past year that we've been running this is many people who have recently arrived, Spanish-speaking, and I'm sure other groups as well, they don't have neighbors, they don't have a sense of community, they don't speak English, and their social network could be as small as 2 or 3 people. So when we invite them in here, we get about 25 people every Saturday, and they have formed a community, and it is something that is very valuable to them and to us, quite frankly, as we move forward. And finally, we have a new venture that is going to be unleashed, we hope, in the next month, what is called kind of a grab and go, where we'll be offering food, sandwiches, probably some fruit and water to people from the streets who are homeless at this time, to be able to take from where we are right now in Emmanuel Church on Newberry Street. So we're excited about all that, and we're excited that you're with us here tonight. So let me first introduce our audience, and then I will come back to them with some questions. On my left, maybe first to your site, would be Dr. Geralde Gabeau. And Dr. Geralde really runs the Immigrant Family Services Institute. And the mission, as I understand it, is to center on the voice of immigrants and to expedite their successful integration into the social and economic fabric of the United States with justice and with dignity. Second, at the middle here, in your screen, probably second, is Suzanne Giovanetti. And Suzanne's work is related to the Plymouth Area Coalition for Homeless. And their work is to nurture and empower families and individuals seeking basic needs assistance by providing them shelter, food, and educational resources that are so necessary to reach their potential and independence. And finally, on my right is Jeff Thielman, and Jeff runs the International Institute for New England. And their mission is to create opportunities for refugees and immigrants to succeed through resettlement, education, career advancement, and pathways to citizenship. So I think we have a wide range of interests here tonight focusing on pretty much the same issue. And my hope is that we'll get some diverse insights that we can all learn from. And at the end of the talk here, we'll really talk, hopefully, about what can we do, both as institutions and perhaps as individuals, to become more aware, more sensitive to the needs of so many people, immigrants and people who are really struggling on the streets and people in poverty. The discussion period will last about 1 hour, 60 minutes or so. We will finish that about 7:40, and we'll have about 15 to 20 minutes of questions. I'd advise you on your Zoom connection, you have a question and answer slot at the bottom to put your questions in, not at the end, but at any time you feel during the course of this conversation that you'd like that question answered. They will be fed to me, and I will ask as many of the questions as I can in the time allotted to us. So we look forward to that. And then finally, we will end the conference at 8 o'clock sharp. So with that, then, let me get back to our distinguished guests. And first say that really, I think I may have mentioned, but the purpose of this is to discuss how poverty, immigration, and homelessness intersect to affect the lives of so many people in our city and beyond, and to offer potential solutions to improve housing and economic security for immigrants in particular. And I'll offer some context here by saying that the reasons people migrate to the United States and other countries are multiple, and they include armed violence, ethnic and racial conflict, unemployment, environmental degradation, political and economic corruption, threats to and/or denial of human rights. And some older data that we have would say that approximately 15% of this country are immigrants. They're immigrant people, meaning that they were born outside of the United States and have come to us during the past years of their lives. And immigrants are perhaps the most vulnerable population among us, as well as the homeless. Immigrants face language barriers that affect income and educational opportunities. And for some, there is uncertain legal status. We all probably have met people who are undocumented, and their lives are not easy. They're very difficult in terms of managing day-to-day existence with the threat of being deported from this country. And this is compounded by an anti-immigrant sentiment among some of our population, both individually as well as within some of our institutions. And immigrants, as well as people of color, are prone to discrimination, marginalization, accessible education, adequate jobs, and stable housing. And finally, immigrants, as well as people of color, are at higher risk for income poverty than other social subgroups in our population. So with that, then, I would like to ask each individual, Geralde, perhaps you could start to talk about your institution and inform us a little bit about that briefly, and then we'll go through each one, and then we'll begin to ask specific questions. So Geralde, take it away.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be with you all and to share some of the work that we are doing at what we call IFSI, Immigrant Family Services Institute. So our organization, we always say, stand on 3 pillars: education, advocacy, and integration. And we believe those 3 pillars are so essential in terms of helping new immigrants fully integrate into their communities. As you can imagine, when you come for the first time in a country, you don't speak the language, you don't understand the culture, everything is complicated. There is nothing simple about coming to a new country and trying to make your way. So we have to be there to advocate on their behalf. And so often there are issues that they are facing. They don't even know that those are real issues that need solution. And our job is to understand the challenges that they face so that we can really advocate on their behalf so that they can have access to what they need. And education is key. As you already said, when you come, you don't speak the language, you don't understand anything about the job search, you know, where to go and find anything. So we basically focus a lot on educating both parents and children. And as soon as, you know, parents come to us, our first job is to really get them to their English classes, their computer classes, whatever job training, as a way to get them to a good job. And integration, research has shown that it takes anything between 10 to 15 years for a new immigrant to reintegrate into their communities. So this is a big challenge when you think about the children who depend on their parents. When parents take so long to integrate, the impact on children is something that we cannot even measure because we repeat the cycle of poverty. So that's the reason why we work quickly on our integration as a way to really get them fully situated, to understand how to navigate the system, where to go to get the resources that they need, so they can really be contributors in terms of, you know, their communities. And one thing that we always said, immigrants are here, they are here to make us better. They are here to make us stronger, and they are here to really nourish and amplify, you know, the culture of where we live. And every time we invest in immigrants, we are doing the right thing because the return on investment is greater than our investment. So again, such a pleasure to be with you, and we know that we'll be talking more in details about all the work that we are doing.
Well, thank you very much. It's very interesting. And Suzanne, why don't you tell us about your organization?
Sure, it's my pleasure. So the Plymouth Area Coalition for the Homeless started in 1985 in Plymouth, and I believe the beauty of it and the strength of it was that it started as a grassroots organization by the community recognizing that there were indeed homeless individuals and families living in the community, whether it be the state forest or on the street. And so from those early days, we've grown to have different types of homeless shelters. Right now, what we have, it's since 1992, we've had Pilgrim's Hope Shelter in Kingston, which is an emergency assistance shelter, providing shelter for families. Definitely a smaller scale. It has 13 rooms. October 20th of last year, we took over the management of one of the hotels, welcoming the new arrivals. And so right now, all told, we have probably over 450 people in shelter that we're supporting in their move forward. So that's certainly the larger part of what we do. We're all about basic needs support and certainly shelter. We have a big food pantry program that we actually serve 22 South Shore communities. So we're helping several communities along that. And we have a fair program that provides clothing and household items, both to families and individuals that have particular need, but also to our families that when we find rehousing opportunities for them, we can provide them with what they need to set up housekeeping. And Voice in the Night, which is a 24-hour live manned referral to provide resource information for all types of different needs that individuals and families might need. So we have a lot going on, certainly, but the heart and soul of what we're doing is in the sheltering and basic needs support.
Yeah, amazing, wonderful work. And finally, Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit about the International Institute of New England Immigrant and Refugee Resettlement?
Thank you so much, and it's great to be on this panel with these great people. Our organization got started in 1918 in Lowell, Massachusetts. The YWCA, Young Women's Christian Association, decided to set up an institute to welcome newcomers to Lowell. And then one opened up in Boston at a YWCA in 1924, and then a group started work in Manchester, New Hampshire in the late 1970s. And the mission of the organization has been, since the beginning, to welcome people to the United States who come from other lands. And most of the people that the International Institute of New England is serving right now are people who have fled some form of persecution. So our clients are refugees, they're asylees, they're victims of human trafficking, they're unaccompanied children who have come across the southern border, and there are a lot of people who are in a rather newer category, at least for us, are paroled into the country. Many people from Haiti. So this year, we're on target to serve about 10,000 people, a range of services, and about 5,800 of the folks that we're serving are people from Haiti. Many of them sent to us by Dr. Gabeau's organization. So we're partnering to try to help people out. So our services include resettlement. It's a broad term that means kind of helping people who come to the region resettle and stabilize. And so and for some populations, that involves us helping them to find housing. It involves enrolling them in all the public benefits to which they're entitled to, enrolling them in health care plans, making sure their children are enrolled in schools, helping them get a stable start. Then the next kind of area of service is education. That's primarily English. That's a key to being successful anywhere in the United States, and that's about 1,000 people in our ESOL classes in all three of our sites, Boston, Lowell, and Manchester, New Hampshire. And then skills training and job placement. We place people in jobs all over the region, and there are plenty of jobs and not enough people that we can place in those companies. And then an immigration legal services program. So we have a 10-person staff of attorneys and paralegals that help people adjust their status so they can stay in the United States.
Okay, amazing. All three of you amazing. I'm already impressed. So anyway, I want to ask just a general question before we get into the specifics. What are the biggest challenges that the immigrant population faces, and who are they? You're dealing with a lot of Haitians, and are they mixed, or what's the predominance that you're seeing? Suzanne, why don't you start it off?
So I would say predominantly, yes, we're serving Haitian, people of Haitian descent. Definitely, we have a few Venezuelan, South American people, but the majority of the immigrant population we're serving. And they make up 75% of the people that we have in our shelters.
Wow.
So, yeah, that would be my, pretty much that's the culture that we're
Okay, are you all
working
seeing the
with.
same?
We are, I mean, we're seeing, so, you know, in 2021, we resettled 544 people from Afghanistan. Afghanistan fell, and the U.S. government brought 72,000 people here, and our organization, and other resettlement, there's 8 resettlement agencies in Massachusetts that do what we do. And we all resettled, you know, a couple thousand Afghans in the state. Then in 2022, Ukraine fell. And so we had a lot of Ukrainians coming. And then all of a sudden, a huge influx of people from Haiti. And so we receive people, a lot of people from Central America, South America. The unaccompanied children, that's about 600 of our clients this year, all from Central America. But the Haitian population is our largest percentage this fiscal year.
Wow. Yeah. And Geralde, I know your population is mostly Haitian, and
Yes.
tell us a little bit about that, but also just reading the news that the violence in Haiti right now is out of control. From what I've read, not just the gangs, but the response of the government is just as violent, so that there's a tremendous amount of trouble.
Yeah, and that's what explains, you know, the influx of Haitians coming, you know, over the past 2 years.
Right.
So you probably, you know, learned from the news that we had the assassination of the president while, you know, the president was, you know, running the country, was assassinated in his home. And as of today, investigation is still going on. We cannot even find out exactly who did it. So can you imagine the president of a country being assassinated in his own, you know, home? And with that, we have what we call like a lack of leadership. So since then, we've been really talking to the U.S. government and all of the, you know, leaders, you know, around the world to really help us, because you cannot have a country without any governance. And that's what has been happening. And because of this, you know, political turmoil, now, you know, we have a lot of, you know, gun violence in the street and really stopping people from daily activities. Children cannot go to school, you know, parents cannot go to work. If you have a pregnant woman about to deliver a baby, depending on the day, you cannot go from here to the next place, meaning that people are dying because of lack of access to one point for another. And that's the reason why so many people, they are fleeing for their lives. They have no other choice than to flee. And that's what we see, you know, among all of the agencies, that we have this real massive influx of Haitians, you know, fleeing, you know, that political turmoil to at least, you know, stay alive. Because if not, it's a matter of death, life and death situation.
Yeah, very interesting. So I want to switch now to a more specific topic of, let's talk a little bit about poverty. Obviously, immigrants are prone to poverty because of the conditions. And you people are working in, I'm assuming, non-profit organizations.
Yes.
And can you speak to that as well as the governmental response? How do we attack this in a sense where you can decrease poverty rates in these people who are coming in, making it, giving them a fairer chance for dignity as well as a lifestyle here that is worthy? Jeff, you want to start?
Well, you know, speaking specifically of the Haitian population coming into our region, you know, Massachusetts has the 3rd largest concentration of Haitians outside of Haiti. Largest is Miami, 2nd largest is New York City, 3rd largest is here. And so a lot of people are coming to be with people they know back from home, and they hear great things about Massachusetts. But Massachusetts is a high-cost state. Yeah. So people come to the United States with very little. Refugees come with almost nothing. The Afghans we resettled had very little money. Lots of people who come to this region start out with very little, almost nothing. They don't have a credit history in the United States. They need help getting an apartment. They need some help to get into, they need the benefit, public benefits for things like food stamps and other things that help them out. So part of it is their newness to the country. But I will tell you that everybody that we meet, for the most part, they want to work hard, they want to contribute, they're willing to work a couple of jobs to try to make it in this region, and they want to get out of poverty. That's what we see. They want to get out of poverty. And so with little help, like English classes, some of the benefits that they're entitled to under law, people will advance.
Okay. You know, let me just follow up with that. You know, you say that they're entitled to ESOL, and yet my understanding is here in Boston, we run an ESOL program, and we have, I think, a waiting list of 100 people.
Yeah.
So what's the...
Well, there's a waiting list for all services right now. So the English for speakers of other language classes, there's a huge waiting list. We even have a waiting list, unfortunately, for people that kind of enroll in public benefits with us because we don't have enough case specialists. And you know, there's a line of people that come for services and they sign up to get a time to enroll. So there's a shortage of English classes right now for people, for sure. There's a shortage of people to help people get jobs. There's a shortage of that kind of support. And we don't have enough money. You need money to run English classes. You need money to pay teachers. And that often requires more money from the state or the federal government to do that kind of work.
We run into the same problem. Our limitation is teachers. You know,
Yeah.
how do we get them in on it? So maybe, Suzanne, I want to just follow up on poverty a little bit. The numbers I have that would say that in the U.S., poverty is about 11–12% of the population. And yet what we find is that in blacks, it's 17%, Hispanics, about 17%. And that in non-Hispanic whites and Asians, it's down at 8%. Can this be explained just by racism, or what are the other factors that are separating people of color from a white population that are struggling?
You know, I always say to people, you know, we live the life we live in most cases by the accident of our birth, the circumstances that we were born into. And while many people find their way out of adversity, you know, we are kind of born into a particular situation. You know, I'm not sure what the answer is on. We're big believers that we believe the backbone of our organization is education, and so our education program works to address that. To solve poverty and homelessness is going to take generations, truthfully, but it's going to take all parties coming up with a plan that will, in fact, answer these problems. But it's no matter what, there's no quick fix. Money, infusion of money certainly always helps, but it's a problem that's going to take generations and a whole different. We have to look at things through a different lens. We all do. We live in a global world, right? This is not just the Commonwealth of Massachusetts or New England. Or we have to think globally, and we're citizens of the world, and we have to welcome everybody.
Yeah. It would seem to me that education is key. I mean, there's lots of factors, but that's one. And Geralde, do you want to comment on that? Do you
Yes.
you see the same? You have an educational component to it.
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, just to go back to the questions around, poverty. Probably it will take us, if we were to really, explain, what's going on in our society. It would take us probably hours and hours to really, offer, the right response. Just think about, wherever you were born, the color of your skin, the zip code where you live, the parents, the support that you have around you, all of that are indicators of whether or not you're going to live in poverty or if you're going to live a decent life. So think about, us in the US where we know, some people have access to some, privileges. Some people have access to a great education, meaning that they can get access to a great job, they can work and they can make money and they can, buy a house. And then by the time that they die, they leave all of their wealth for their children. So the system is basically building like who gets what, you see what I mean? But when you are an immigrant, member of a community, you come and as Jeff said, most people come with an envelope in their hands. So they have absolutely nothing in terms of, background, of, wealth to lean on. So when they come, they have to start not from zero, from minus, minus 10 or minus 20. So the time it will take them to build some wealth, it's by the time that they are getting to that level, they are ready to live and to retire or to die. So that's the reason why the system itself is dictating who gets what in this country. And that it is so unfortunate that, systemic racism is really stopping a lot of people from accessing, like a decent job or, access to even a place to live and so on and so forth. So this is a major, big issue that probably will take us hours and hours to discuss. But education, as we always say, for example, I come from, the culture where our parents always say to all of us, listen, we don't have any wealth to leave behind for you. We don't have any big, fancy homes to live. But the only thing that we can leave for you is a good education. Because we know if you are well educated and if you, can have a conversation wherever you land, you will be able to do something. And that's the reason for us in the immigrant community, education is key. So our parents fought. They will not eat just to make sure that we go, to a good school and that we access the right education. So that's one of the reasons why education is the key, because we know if we do not invest in our children right now, if we will not invest in our youth so that they can access that level of education, there is no way that they're going to be able to succeed.
Very nice. And Suzanne, you kind of commented on this as well, the idea that it's institutional and it's not something that will change overnight, but steps have to be taken. So I want to just switch gears, Jeff, and ask you one here. Immigration again, but Geralde commented on this in her opening remarks, that immigration sometimes gets a bad name among some people, but in fact, it can be a catalyst for economic growth. And even if this reality gets politicized and downplayed by some, immigrants fill many jobs others are reluctant to take. And they are a critical means to providing a prosperous local economies. How do you feel about
Oh, I totally agree with that. And, this region, the city of Boston, 29% of the residents of the city of Boston were born outside of the United States. All of our population growth in Massachusetts over the past 30 or 40 years has been due to immigration. We have an aging population in this region. We have a low birth rate among people who are native-born Americans. And the immigrants who are coming are building our economy. Massachusetts has lost about 100,000 jobs since 100,000 people, 100,000 people since the pandemic started. So how are we going to replace those 100,000 people? And we have about 200,000 job openings right now. And so we need immigrants to come to this region to make it strong. And if you look at the leading companies that have driven the economy in this region over the past several years, Moderna, right? Big company, pride of the region. The vaccine came from there, headed by an immigrant, Stefan Bancel, and a team of immigrants on his staff. If you look at MIT, the president for a long time was an immigrant from Venezuela. Rafael Reif, the president of Northeastern, Joseph Ayoun, is from Lebanon. All of the leaders of the institutions that we have here, a lot of them were born outside of the United States, and they've come here and they've made our economy better. Innovation in technology has been led by people born outside of the United States. Medicine, the hospitals are filled with people who learned their practice or came to the United States and became doctors. Reshma Kelramani, the CEO of Vertex, was born in India, came to the United States, became a doctor. And she tells a story the other day. I was at an event with her, told a story about how their family had no money, and a group of people in a local parish gathered together some money and kind of helped her get all of her vaccines so she could go to school. So, immigrants drive our whole economy. And the minute you politicize immigrants and you other them and you talk about them in a negative way, you're really acting in a way that is not in your own best interest.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and people don't realize that.
Right.
They're just oblivious to the fact that the immigrant population is necessary and it's also beneficial.
Correct.
For the common good of all.
Yeah.
Maybe Suzanne, we've talked a little bit about the English language skills, and can you comment in your work about the children, once they're in school, I guess, are exposed to the English language. How successful is that? And then what about the parents or the adults? Where does that stand with your organization or what you know outside?
Yeah, so what I did a couple of years ago is I actually had a former principal take on the role for the coalition as our education coordinator, so that he had the insight and the knowledge to really make sure that each child's needs were met. And so obviously McKinney-Vento, we're dealing with 8, 9 different districts. And he is spot on with addressing each of the child's educational needs. We certainly recognize that we want everybody to have all those opportunities that they're entitled to. So John really, he's right in tune with all of that. We've had great success getting them enrolled. Like I said, I think we're 8 or 9 districts that we're dealing with right now. And they're doing wonderful, whether they be in we have them going to Kennedy Donovan for early intervention. We have them in the local school system. In Head Start program has great success with the children. And we've seen just in the few weeks of this academic year, great improvement in their language skills at that level. So we're talking 3- and 4-year-olds, and in the elementary school as well. And I would add that as much as they're getting out of what the school systems offer, they're enriching the education of all the other children in those systems. They really are, and we're just becoming more aware of cultures, and it's really a wonderful thing to witness. And we have kids on soccer teams, and they're in the band. It's been very successful. We started several years ago. We brought in School on Wheels, so that, and again, not just the immigrant population, but homeless at large. The children all needed that little bit of extra support, whether it be academic or just mentoring. And so we try to address those needs to really help the kids get along and have a good experience. And one of the things that the coalition really holds on to is shelter is temporary. EA shelter is temporary. Our goal is to help them find sustainability on their own. But while they're in shelter, we work very hard for them to create memorable moments, so that even though they may not be living in their own home.
Okay. So very nice. Joel, let me follow up on that point with the children. I can speak more for the Spanish-speaking population from Latin America or wherever, and the children come in and they do speak English. And not only that, then they adopt the culture of the United States. Meanwhile, their parents still have the mentality of a little pueblo in Latin America somewhere, and it leads to tremendous conflict at home.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the first challenge that we have, especially around parenting education, because as you can imagine, children are a sponge, right? I mean, whatever you give them, they just take it, and then that's one of the reasons why they speak English so fast. I'm amazed every time, a child comes to us for the first time, not knowing one word of English, and then a few months later they come back, and then they can speak better than you can. So they take it so fast, and that's the reason why around, acculturation, they tend, because they are in a new culture, they tend to really look at what's going on around them and just, try to replicate that, which is so different from parents, because children are moving fast. Children are taking everything around them. But parents tend to be a little bit stiff. They do not change like this because most of their foundation has been built already from their home country. So here we are. We have children who are moving, who are changing, who are adapting, and then we have parents who are just say, I'm not moving no left, no right. So that's the reason why so often we have to do a lot of parenting education to really help parents understand that, yes, we do understand the culture that you are coming from. We do understand your values. However, you need to also understand that those children, are living in a different culture, and they are meeting with new friends. They are meeting with people who do not necessarily understand the same culture. So that flexibility, we need you to develop that so that we can really maintain the relationship. The good thing is that once we have our, Black parenting workshop that we do as a way to really help parents understand, yes, you should be proud of your culture. You should be proud of everything, all the foundation that you had, but that doesn't mean that you cannot adapt. So when we get to that point where we can really mix those two, we're getting something very beautiful where parents and children are really moving together. But if we don't do this work, yes, it is a challenge because so often we lose children to the system. The reason why, because parents said, no, I don't want you to do this. And children said, why not? And in my culture, there is no why not. Parents tell you to do, to move, and then you move. Parents would say silence, you say silent. But here, you will say silence. You said, why do you, I need to understand why. And which is so different from what we were brought up with. So that's the reason why it's important for us to really do those parenting education to get them to that level of where they can understand each other and, thrive together.
Oh, great. Yeah, very nice. Jeff, you had mentioned a while ago about Boston or Massachusetts is one of the more expensive housing markets in the country. And how is that impacting homelessness? Is it affecting us more than other cities here in Boston, or how would you address that?
Well, so right now in the state of Massachusetts, we're under a state of emergency in our shelter system. The state has a law which says that if you don't have a place to live and you have children, the state will find you a place to live. And now there's about 3,000 people, 3,000 families that are in hotels. Because of the shelter system is overcrowded. So, I mean, that is due to the high cost of housing in the state. And, it's important to understand there are apartments out there and there are places to live, but families can't afford them unless they have some sort of subsidy, especially when they're just starting out in Massachusetts as an immigrant from another country. And so that's kind of our reality right now. The high cost of living has it has made it difficult to resettle refugees in this state. We have kind of lobbied the state government to give us some funding that we can use to subsidize people when they come here. We have used a fund from the state legislature called the Massachusetts Resettlement Support Program to help Haitian clients a little bit with rent or help them to stay where they're staying. But we have had many families go in the shelter system, and our organization is now serving 8 hotels with immigration, legal services, and case management. And we were in a meeting yesterday or the other day with the Secretary of Health and Human Services for the state, and she was asking for ideas to help people get out of those shelters as fast as possible. And it's a daunting challenge because housing is so expensive.
Yeah. Now, I think I read recently in New York, similar problem, and the governor had asked for federal assistance. And where does that stand, here or there?
To my knowledge, we haven't got a lot of federal assistance. There's 2 kinds of federal assistance that the state is looking for that we're all actually hoping for. One is to accelerate the process by which people can get employer authorization documents, and that's a requirement to work in this country. It takes too long, and the governor has asked the Biden administration to expedite this. Everyone's asked the Biden administration to expedite it, to make it easier for people to get employer authorization documents. The Secretary of Homeland Security could, we believe, actually change the rules to allow people to be admitted to the United States with authority to work once they're here, if he wanted to. In addition, the governor is asking the federal government to give us some federal dollars that can be used to help house people, to educate them, to pay for English for speakers of other language classes, job training, job placement. And so that's the ask of the governor, and we all support it.
Okay, very nice. Susan, let me just, same topic, homelessness, but what about the issue of mental illness in the homeless? I mean, I've had some contact with the homeless, and it's not trivial. I mean, there's a fair number of them who are really suffering, and creates problems. I mean, I know here at this institution, there is a homeless person who comes in occasionally and threatens violence, and then they have to intervene, and she winds up being arrested. But she's clearly incapacitated to a great extent. So what do your organizations address this, or how are you dealing with this?
Yeah, there's no question that mental illness runs right through the middle of homelessness. I mean, we do see it. It's on the positive side, we've all recognized now, we're much more accepting of the fact that mental illness has many different levels and can be addressed and dealt with. So we're more comfortable speaking about it. Right? As far as working, it makes shelter management at times very challenging. There's no question. But that's what we do, you know, and so you address it on a case-by-case basis. Certainly we do everything we can to make sure people have access to the resources they need to support them. But again, that's another area that our nation has to really ramp up and address. It's definitely rampant in the homeless community, whether it be individual or family.
Yeah, and the toll on staff, I mean, emotionally it's tough. I know in this institution here, this church, they have homeless outreach, I think 4 days a week, and they have mandated one day that they can just recover, because they say it's really very traumatic after what goes on. Your staff, I would imagine all of your staff's the same. Do you find a way to help people rejuvenate? Is it possible?
Well, I mean, it's certainly, it's something, I think we have a generous policy of personal days and sick days to allow people, when they need that mental health day, we certainly try to do things for them. And we have other resources that we bring in and have just groups, I'm missing the word that I want, but so not a class for them, but we have professionals come in and work with them on skills that they need to deal when you're dealing with people in this case. So I think we're trying to do everything we can to support them and recognize that it's challenging, no question. But you know, I'm always a glass half full person, so I like to think about all the positives that we're getting back, and sometimes that helps.
Yeah, very nice. Geralde, let me ask another one about homelessness. Where are these people geographically or demographically in the United States? Are they in the cities, the immigrant population, the homeless population? Do you see the same impact in more or less urban areas?
Yeah. So currently, just to kind of give you a little background of what's going on, first, for immigrants who are coming here from the border, the long journey, the trauma that they experience, there's no doubt with all of the trauma and all the challenges that they face. So mental health is a huge issue among all of them, especially that they did not expect their journey from Haiti through Central America all the way to the border to get here. They didn't expect that journey to be like this. And so often we have really skilled people who had really like a decent life in Haiti, going through this experience that they never thought was going to be like this. And when I'm talking about experience, and for those of you who probably are listening, you're talking about people facing death every day, walking days and nights with children, no food, nothing, seeing dead people. For example, we have one person who said we were 13 when we left, and by the time we get to the border, it was only 6 of us. So all 7 died. So you can imagine the impact on those people by the time that they make it here. So now that they are here, so one thing that we are trying to do is to really keep them in communities, because one thing that is so important for them is to feel that connection. However, because of what everyone has been talking about now, there is not enough space. We don't have enough shelters. We don't have enough units. We cannot, because of the high cost of rent, we cannot continue to pay rent. So people are now scattered all across the state, which is something that is very, very difficult and challenging for our immigrant community. Because when you are so far away, you are removed from your community, from your network. And so many of them are in communities where there is no black people. They don't see anyone their color. They don't see anyone who speaks their language. So that makes it even 10 times difficult. And that's one of the reasons why that mental health issue that we talk about, it's like you are leaving your country with the idea that when you finally make it here, things are going to get better. Right. And then here you are, and you realize, oh, now things are not, I cannot find food, I cannot go to the store, I cannot talk to anyone, I am, in that closed room, there's nothing that I can do. So again, it's added trauma on top of what they have experienced. So yeah, they are all across, and anyone who is watching or who is following, just look to your next door and you will see that there is a family there who is newly arrived and who needs help. They are all across, all around us.
All right. And so, Suzanne, I want to double back on you, this idea of homelessness and immigration and poverty. Obviously, women are at risk here. Women on the street are abused, taken advantage of. And yet, in my experience, a lot of times you don't see a lot of women on the street. But if you go into a soup kitchen confined to women, for example, here we have Women's Place, I think, or it's full of women. Yeah. So there's a term that at least I've discovered is that the women learn to hide on the street to some extent, that people don't necessarily see them. What is your experience of that and what you're dealing with?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, things have changed for us because what we're seeing now are more two-parent or two-adult caregivers in shelter, where half a dozen years ago, it was shifted the other way. There might have been one intact family and all single women. So, so the face of homelessness has changed that way. I certainly think that there is definitely increased difficulty for an individual woman or an individual mother and children. They need the support, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous out there, and quite often they have difficulty navigating to the resources that can help them. And that's what in our Voice in the Night we get many calls like that would be more individual women that are really, where do I go? What do I do? I'm fleeing a domestic violence situation. I have maybe some substance use, but definitely those, they need so many supports and they need to feel safe. Safety is the key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, your experience of this?
So we try to keep people out of homelessness, but we don't always succeed. And so we have seen some of our clients enter into the shelter system, and that's always kind of I think for our staff, it's kind of like, oh, we didn't quite get this one right. We didn't give them enough support. We didn't help them fast enough. And so that's a hard thing for us to take. But, it's the reality, and that we have clients who just can't afford where they're living, and some of them do end up homeless. If they have children, they end up in the shelter system. There's also some of our single clients will as well. I do also see, though, that, among our client base, there's a lot of effort among the community to help each other. So the Afghan community in Lowell has tried to help one another. The Haitian community, the other day I was leaving our office on Boylston Street here in Boston, and a woman who had sponsored, a Haitian woman had sponsored someone in her family to come to the United States. She got there and she was trying to sign up to get in line to get benefits for her niece, I guess. But she stood up and she said, I have a small apartment in Mattapan, but I had a family in Haiti. She sponsored that family, and that person is living with her. So you see a lot of these little graceful moments that are uplifting and encouraging, because other human beings are just trying to help out other human beings.
Yeah, very nice. Now, here's a kind of a general question. Anyone, feel free to answer this idea. You know, we've been inundated for 4 years with COVID, coming out of it now, and what's been the effect of COVID on these issues, poverty, immigration, homelessness? Anyone? Phil?
Yeah, I mean, we know, I mean, all of the studies have shown, you know, the impact of COVID on, you know, the most vulnerable populations. You know, the immigrants were the first one, you know, to suffer from COVID. They are the first one to let go of their work. They are the first one to die. And remember, when we talk about COVID, and so often they were asking people to isolate themselves. It's like, how do I isolate myself when I'm living in that small apartment with 10, 12 people? You see what I mean? So they were the first one to lose as much as, you know, they gain over, you know, the past 10 years. Meaning that now that we are getting out, you know, from COVID, again, so many of them, it's almost that they are restarting. You see what I mean? They are going back to where they left off, you know, because they lost so much. So COVID had a really very negative impact on our immigrant community. So we had to work day in and day out to provide, you know, food, cash assistance, and other support to them. So now that, you know, we are starting to rebuild, people are at this point where it's like they were like at +5, and now they have to start from, you know, -1 to get back to where they need to be. And again, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about there's a systemic issue where those who are already at the bottom remain at the bottom for a long time, and they have to fight for so hard for them to at least get to a level where others are just flying. And that's the system that we are living in. And if there is anything for us to do, it will take years and years, maybe centuries for us to change that. But this is something that we have to constantly be, you know, bring awareness about those issues so that people understand that I'm not poor because I was born poor. I'm poor because I'm living in a system that prepared me to be poor for the rest of my life. And that's what we have to deal with.
One thing to remember about COVID is that the vast majority of people on the front lines, first responders,
Exactly.
people in the hospitals who work in the hospital, people even in supermarkets, people working in Amazon delivering, they were immigrants.
Yes, they were.
Absolutely. I mean, if you went to a hospital during COVID-19, chances were pretty good that someone who was born outside of the United States was attending to your needs. If you were getting food delivered to you, chances are pretty good that a number of people born outside of the United States were involved in that delivery.
Yes.
They were either the one delivering it, they were preparing the food, they were the ones working.
Yes.
So I think it's important that we not forget that COVID-19, many of us were fortunate enough to stay home and be protected, while lots of people who were born inside of this country, who were immigrants of this country, without limited resources, were forced to work and were on the front lines.
Yes.
And pay the consequences.
And paid the consequences, that's
consequences.
right. We can't forget about that. Many paid the consequences.
And because so many of them, they did not know that they could take a day
Correct.
off. So many of them were afraid of losing that job. So many of them, I mean, and all of the barriers, so for those who are here, who know the system, they know how to go and request their day off. But immigrants in general, I mean, first, I have to say, immigrants are the most compassionate people.
Yeah.
So I've spoke to so many nurses when I said, so why do you have to go despite the fact that you're not feeling okay? And she said, what about all of those people who are waiting on me? If I don't go, they will die. So they are the most compassionate people, and they care deeply about others. And that's the reason why so often they risk their lives. And at the end of the day, you know, the way that they are treated doesn't really show any, you know, kind of, you know, awareness or recognition of their effort, of their sacrifices. You see what I mean? And like, you know, the nursing homes, I had so many people calling me because their grandma was in a nursing home. But who was taking care of that grandma? An immigrant. Where were they? You know, home. But every day they took the risk to go and save people's life. And still, you know, they are the ones to suffer all of the consequences.
Okay. Just the same topic, but just to push it a little further, that health care for the immigrants, for the poor. We recently, last spring, we had Boston Healthcare for the Homeless with Jim O'Connell. He said they were very successful of immunizing the homeless population in this area. And it was, the reason for it was really relationship. They had built up relationship with these people who trusted them, where they didn't trust a lot of the institutionals. people. Jeff, you want to comment? What do you?
Well, we had some funding that allowed us to try to reach out to the immigrant community, get them vaccinated. And so we had staff members who were calling past clients of ours who were trying to get them to different places to get their vaccinations. And so we put in a good faith effort. I don't really have the numbers of how many of our immigrant clients actually got vaccinated, but we put effort and time into it. At the same time, we had a program to deliver food and medicine to some of our clients who were staying at home during the pandemic. And so if you have relationships with people, it's easier to help them out.
Yeah, I think that's what the point he was making, Jim O'Connell, that the institutions had a lot of trouble. They didn't trust the institutions.
Right.
But they trusted people that they had.
They trusted people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if their caseworker
Yes.
called them up and they had worked with them a few years earlier, they're like, yeah, come on.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So here's another one on homelessness. Feel free, anyone, to chime in here, all three of you. Where are we at with Mass and Cass? For the people who don't know, we're talking about a conglomeration of homeless people in Boston on an intersection of two major thoroughways that the homeless have camped out, and they were moved off of it at one point. They came back, and where do things stand now? Anyone want to tackle that one?
You know, it's in the news all the time here in Boston, but our population is not in that situation, so I don't know what the latest is.
Okay.
I know there have been a number of efforts by the mayor and the city council to try to address a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, I would feel the same way, and if I were going to broaden it, I think I'd say, I think the responsiveness of the governor and the mayor, and I think that, you know, even for myself, the legislative team that I work with, the Commonwealth's been incredibly responsive and really trying to make efforts to answer things like Mass and Cass, and how do we deal with the immigrant or the new arrivals. And I think I've felt very supported by them and have a great relationship with them. I'm on the phone at least once a week with some form of elected official to make sure that things are being addressed.
And Geralde, do you find the Haitians are part of this, Mass and Cass? Or?
No, not really. I mean, last time I know about, most of the people, we did not know of any Haitians in this group because, most of the people that we are dealing with, like I said, are newly arrived people who are really trying to, find their ways, in the system or to build their life here. Not that I know, so I cannot really comment on
Okay.
this. Yeah.
Another thing I want to bring up is that Boston as a city has had a long-standing reputation of being quite racist, and yet in contrast, we have some of the best universities and hospitals in the country. And can you make the argument that the housing situation, to some extent, is structural? Jeff, do you want to say?
Well, sure it is. I mean, there was redlining in the 1920s and 30s and 40s and beyond. There were, concerted efforts to make it difficult for people to get access to mortgages and financing to buy homes. Where I live in Arlington, there was redlining back in the day, and that's led to a community that's fairly white and affluent. And so, we're the legacy of all that, and it's something you have to think about as you try to address inequities in our society.
Sure. Yeah. And what about the processing of the immigrant population as they come in? It's overwhelmed. There was a time they could come in and claim asylum and be tried, and now there's all kinds of moves to kind of somewhat curtail that as to how it unfolds. And it's just, in fairness to the government, it's completely overwhelming.
Yeah. So think about it. You have a lot of people coming and seeking kind of asylum, which is a right. And when people are fleeing persecution, they are fleeing political turmoil, so they are coming here. So we said they have the right to come and request asylum. So for you to be able to come here and to start the process, it's a very long, difficult, and arduous process. And then you are in a system where the number of judges that you have, right, compared to the number of people who need access to those jerseys is like, it's almost like, you know, a 1 to 10,000 or even more than that. So you have one judge for probably 10,000 or 20,000 people. So when do you go and process all of those paperwork when the system is not even ready for that? And when you are dealing with a, you know, with a group that where you already have all of the background information about the country, you know all of the facts, you know exactly what's going on in Haiti, you know about the political turmoil, you already have all that information. So if you really wanted to help people, you know, there is a way for our system to be more humane. Currently, the way that it is, it's just like the same old system that we had, you know, I don't know for how many centuries, that we are still, I mean, this is what happened. Things are changing, but the system remains the same. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing all across, whether or not we're talking about housing, whether or not you're talking about politics, whether or not you're talking about education. So you have the same 1% of the population, you know, dictating 99% of what's going on. And that same 1% remains with the same mindset. So we do not have that shift, you know, that paradigm shift where we said, okay, now that things are changing, you know, worldwide, everything is changing. You know, whether or not it's demographic, whether or not it's natural disaster, you know, I mean, just name it, everything is changing. So how is it that our system is so rigid? We are not willing to change. So one judge for 20,000 people, in which world do you do that? Do you do that math? When you know, anyone is going to find that time? So that's the reason why you may find people waiting for 5, 6, 7 years before they can get, you know, their, you know, right to be acknowledged. So that's a really difficult system for us.
It is difficult, and is there a solution? I mean, it would take massive changes, I suppose.
I mean, there hasn't been real immigration reform in this country in 4 decades.
Exactly.
And so we have an antiquated immigration system. It is the third rail of American politics. I asked Congressman Adam Schiff, who was here at an event in Boston, and I said, you know, is there any way, Congressman, to get immigration reform in this country, because this system is archaic. It's a 4.5-year period on average to get asylum in this country. The judges, as Geralde said, are overwhelmed. It's a slow process. It's incredibly difficult, and we need people and workers in this country.
Yes.
And he said the only way, he said it's a third rail of American politics, and he said the only way it can possibly happen is if the President of the United States is willing to expend quite a bit of political capital to get it done. And he didn't think this was the moment. Yeah. And he's right. It's not going to happen this session of Congress. Maybe next, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I want to switch now, as we're getting close to the end of our time, that really to ask a little bit about where do we go from here. And I'd like to ask each one of you maybe to comment on this. You know, what can an individual do? What can we do as institutions or larger groups as your organizations are that might advance the cause of the people living in poverty, homelessness, and the immigrant population coming in? Suzanne, you want to start?
Sure. So, you know, I'm going to go right back to education and say basically, you know what we can do as individuals really is to learn more and become more aware, and in doing that, then see the avenues that might best fit us. There's no question. Are there opportunities? Yeah, you can volunteer with a group. You can do the simplest things. You know, everybody wants to run a food drive but you know what? That makes a huge difference. I always say our shelter, our hotel has had over 30 babies in 11 months. You know, so we're always talking about diapers, but there are things you can do. I was talking earlier about a conversation group to meet people that are among the immigrant population, help them, in conversation, you learn about them, they learn about you, they're improving their language skills, maybe they're learning about a job opportunity. You know, I know when the governor asked people to open up their homes, a lot of people took pause. There are other things you can do, and I think it's sometimes the simplest gestures that make the greatest difference, and recognizing that, as Jeff said, you know, there's so much opportunity, there's so many jobs out there. We're all trying to hire, and we can't get people. I know that's a way that we can do it, and we'll be a bigger, better, stronger workforce if we open up our doors to welcome the immigrant population.
Yeah, very nice. And creativity, I think, is part of this. That, you know, I've heard recently that the Archdiocese of Boston has contacted, or actually the mayor of Boston has contacted the Archdiocese about renovating some of the convents and rectories that are no longer in use if the parishes would help take people in. That's innovative, and I know that my understanding is that they're going to try. I don't know, but that's an example of a religious organization. There are civic organizations like your work, as well as perhaps smaller groups that could reach out more to the people than currently is happening.
Yes.
And I suspect, maybe you can comment on this, I suspect a lot of that is fear, the unknown.
Oh, yeah.
You bring somebody in, you don't know who they are, and all the reputations people come with.
I think a lot of things you have to do, like, you know, employers, depending on the size of your company, you have a chance to kind of say, okay, to hire people, I'll offer some English classes. I'm going to try to make my workplace immigrant friendly. If you do that, you'll get some workers. I think communities. I think, you know, there's like 80 or 90 communities across the state now that have migrant families living in shelters, living in hotels in their communities. And a lot of people are stepping up in very nice ways, as Suzanne said. They're donating food, they're donating their time, they're donating clothing. So, and also I think it's just a mindset and an attitude that I always try to get people to think that, you know, think about how valuable the immigrant community is to our collective commonwealth. Think about that, know it, don't ever forget that, say it to your friends and neighbors, and I think that can change the way we welcome people.
Yeah. And let me ask you, you know, our viewing audience, I mean, we're always left with the question is, you know, what can I do? You know, and that's what people are probably saying right now. If they were to contact you, would you have volunteer opportunities for some of these people? And maybe you can say what that might be.
Exactly.
People are going to say, I'm not qualified. So
Yeah,
tell me how they are qualified.
So, I mean, what we always say is that the sky is the limit. I remember one of my youth who put together a little poem, and I'm going to try to paraphrase so that, you know, I can give people a sense of, you know, what is it exactly that they can do. And I think he said something, just look around and see. See, you know, those children playing, listen to their noise, and then look around, open up your heart and feel the pain, you know, feel, you know, the trauma that they're going through. Open up your hands, you know, get your feet, you know, start walking. And then before you know it, you will touch a life. You will meet with someone, you will help with someone, and you will make this world a better world. And one thing that we always say is that each and every one of us, there is no excuse whatsoever. Each and every one of us, we can do something. It's just a matter of us taking the time, okay, to ask the right questions, and even to get outside of our comfort zone. So often, we have opportunities to do so many great things, but because we are so comfortable where we are, we don't want to go and then feel uncomfortable on this side of the world. But I think, you know, we are called to move outside of our comfort zone if we want to make some changes. There is no way that you're going to eat your eggs if you don't break the shelf. You have to, you know, move out of your comfort zone to do something positive, to do something good. And my philosophy is that I have one life to live. I have one opportunity to make a change. And it's either that I do it here and that I'm happy, that I fulfill my mission, or I regret it for the rest of my life. And I would hate to regret that I had this opportunity to touch someone's life and I didn't do it. So the sky is the limit in terms of what people do, whether or not it's with their children. For example, currently, we are looking for space because so many of the children are in hotels. There is no playground, there's nothing. They are sitting in the hotel every day with their parents. So they need a place to go and have fun. So we are looking for people who love to work with children, to go take them out and play with them. We are looking for people to drive them to their appointment, medical appointment, eyes appointment. We are looking for people to do those ESL classes. You don't have to be a teacher. You can have conversation. What do they need? Good morning, how are you? Let's practice, let's do that. We are looking for people to cook food and bring them because so often they cannot even eat the food that is being served at the hotel. So we are looking for places for them to stay And so often we have people who live in a big mansion all by themselves. Why don't you welcome the strangers? That's exactly what the Bible speaks so loud and clear about welcoming strangers than any other topic. Just go and research it. So there are things that we can do, but people need to start saying to themselves, am I willing to get outside of that comfort zone and to make that change? And I think if you do, you will see that your world is going to be a better world.
That's right. Yeah. Suzanne, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, I'm always like, I'm lucky that I have a lot of people that do come to us to volunteer, but I think with regard to the immigrant population, story time, come in, and you know, at the hotel we don't have large amounts of space, but we've carved out space that we have dedicated for the kids to do things like School on Wheels and a story time. We're in the process of starting that with a collaboration with the local library to come in. We're doing the conversation group with adults, with members of a local parish that are going to come in and do that. We are ready to start up again our twice a month. We do. I forgot about this when we were talking about mental health, but we do group, sort of a women's group, and then this fall we're going to start a men's group as well. Just kind of a rap session, kind of open topic, but with a volunteer psychologist to come in and sit with them. Life isn't easy when your whole family's living in one room, and the challenges of that, and coming to a new country, and that experience of traveling, getting to the border, getting across the border, going through Boston Medical Center, being sent in a vehicle to a shelter, all, you know, so we volunteers help us with those kind of programs. We have volunteer attorneys. So we've brought in a lot of resources like that on a volunteer basis to help us.
Great. And Jeff, how about you?
You know, we have opportunities for people to volunteer as English tutors. We have people that can help people prepare resumes. We have opportunities. We have volunteer coordinators in each site. And so we also have a community sponsorship program in which people can come together and take care of or support a family of refugees in their community. And we have a person who oversees that program, makes sure that the volunteers are supported. And there's dozens of other volunteer opportunities. You can get on our website and learn about it.
Okay. So yeah, we have registrants who have come in on this meeting. We could certainly provide your organizations and a contact, and then have them because that's what we're always faced with. What can I do? Yes. And I think I'm hearing tonight that there is opportunity for everyone. And I would just sum up too, what I think I heard you all say is that many people, I think, are reluctant because of fear. You know, the fear of the unknown. They don't know these people. But that's the big thing, the courage to take a leap into the darkness. And I think, Geralde, as you were saying, once you do that, what you find on the other side of that leap is a world that has expanded.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And is much more beautiful and really more enriching than what you had before. Oh, yeah. I'd encourage everybody to make contact with these organizations and see if you can do something to help what's going on.
You can start with little step, right?
Yep.
You build on that little step, and then you get to the next, you get to the next, until, like I said, you widen your horizon. But start somewhere. Okay. Don't stay home and say, oh, you know what, there's nothing that I can do. There is always something that you can do.
Okay, well, great. So we're down to questions now. Let me see if anything has come in that we can stifle you with from our audience. So could raising public awareness of the dangers during the journey help minimize the tragic deaths of immigrants coming to the U.S. from Mexico and Central America? Anyone want to take a stab at that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, awareness about all of the issues that they face is so critical. So especially now, that's one of the things that we are doing, talking to people directly from Haiti, you know, to help them understand the journey. We just put together a documentary. It's just to retrace, you know, the path of all of those immigrants, what they have done. And at the end, most of them said, if I knew this was going to be so hard, I would have never, ever taken that road. So yes, we are bringing awareness, but at the same time, we need also to give them the alternative. Because if they cannot stay, you know, there must be the other alternative. So those are the things that we need to bring together, but definitely yes.
Okay, and I think what you're advocating too is the idea that people who have established themselves from Haiti or Latin America, wherever, that perhaps they could be open to taking in some of their own people.
Exactly.
To ease the process. I think you've all touched on that too.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what else can I ask you? I'd like to ask a question myself as we end this program in the next couple of minutes. Can you leave us with a sense of hope? Where is this going, and how do we bring hope to the immigrants as well as to people in this country who are saying we're in such a mess, overwhelmed, and how do we work through this? Suzanne, you've mentioned education. I think I agree with that. That's the key. But anything else anyone wants to say?
I mean, if you look at our history as a country, every group that has come here has struggled, and there's been resentment towards them, whether it's Irish and Italians 100 plus years ago, any group. And, you know, eventually they make it and they're successful. So I believe right now, like the people that we're seeing, that we see only early status immigrants in our offices. And so these folks have very limited resources, they are very poor, and they are struggling. And, you know, it breaks our hearts, some of the situations, and when we can help, we feel good, and when we can't help, we feel bad. But I say to the team that, you know, these are resilient folks, and they will find a way. And so that always gives me hope, that there's a lot of suffering. It's not easy, but they will find a way. The other thing that gives me hope is the number of people that have stepped up in our region to support people like Haitians and Ukrainians and Afghans and other folks.
Yeah.
That gives you a lot of good feeling.
Good.
Yeah. And also, I mean, last night we had this, you know, wonderful time, and one of the people who traveled from Haiti to Central America, 13 different countries before making here, was the one speaking. And he said, because his name is Jerry, and he said, they used to call me Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. And now that I'm here and that I'm learning English, and I'll tell them, my name is no longer Jerry, my name is Jerry. And, you know, you have to see his sense of, you know, he was so proud, and he's working at Northeastern University, helping in the cafeteria, serving, and he speaks Haitian Creole, he speaks Spanish, and he speaks some Portuguese. So for him to say, I'm able to connect with most of the students because most of them speak so many different languages, and he's now adding English so that he can speak to most of the students on campus. So this really gives us a sense of hope. You know, for someone to travel 13 different countries under so much hardship time, and then for him now to see his big smile, you know, hoping for the future. And I think that's what we are. As people of faith, as people who really want to make a difference, you know, investing in someone and seeing that smile, I mean, on that face. And guess what? He's now helping people, driving them to their appointment. He has his driver's license. And I mean, he is so proud to be able to help others who are coming here right now. So, I mean, what else can we do when we see that we invest in one and that one person is helping another? And I think that's what we are called to create, that, you know, really circle of hope where the same way that we lighten all of the candles, one, and then before we know it, we have a world that is illuminated, that where people are striving, where people have joy and people have faith and things like that. So I think, to me, that's given me all the joy in the world, you know, being able to invest in one person and for that one person to make a difference in someone else's life.
Very nice.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I would just say, too, you talked about faith, and a faith that does justice. We are a faith-based organization. But what we really try to emphasize is what you talked about tonight, that, you know, there are differences between religious beliefs, Jew, Christian, Muslim,
Yes.
and we respect that, the dignity of all people. But what I believe is that a good Jew, a good Christian, a good Muslim, we should all be doing the same work.
Yes, oh yeah.
In society, you know, reaching out to people in need, providing human dignity and human rights
Exactly.
to all people,
Showing love and
regardless
compassion.
of
Yes.
where they come from, color of their skin,
Exactly.
religious persuasion.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that gets lost at times. There's so much division. We need more. I think perhaps people of faith need to reach out as being more conciliatory towards others, that
Yes.
you know, we're in this together. And I think the hope you mentioned tonight is worthwhile listening to. And Jeff, you made a point about resiliency. I lived in Central America during the civil wars down there. And I tell you, you know, in the midst of a civil war, people's families were being destroyed. And these people never gave up hope.
Oh yeah.
And it was really impressive to see that they believed somehow, some way, there was a better future.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's all the immigrant populations that you've talked about really are at. And I think we need to remember, too, as Jeff and others have said, that the immigrant population, if we step back, is good for the common good. I mean, we benefit as a society.
Oh, yes.
And it's too often politicized, as we had mentioned, that people get demeaned and because of whatever reason where they're coming from, and it's losing sight of really what we should be about. Yeah. So anyway, anyone want to have a closing remark you want to say, or?
Yeah, I think it's been a wonderful opportunity to share all these different thoughts and touch on such important topics. There's certainly no question, and you know, we're in the business of providing hope as much as we're fortunate enough to deal with people who have great hope.
Yes.
I think that you know,
No, the work you do is an inspiration for me. I think it's an inspiration probably for our audience too, to realize that people are getting involved, and it takes, I think, to me the thing is courage. You know, everyone's afraid. It's just saying, I'm going to take the leap.
Yes.
And I guarantee you, you know, I'm sure you would say the same, that you take the leap and you will not be disappointed.
No, definitely.
You know, there's a lot out there that really brings great fulfillment in our own lives, and meaning to it. So
when you see someone, when you see them open up their envelopes and they're getting their work papers or their TPS comes, there is no greater. Everybody's doing the happy dance.
Yes.
It's just one of the greatest.
Oh, nice.
It's the most fulfilling thing to see. It's like a new birth.
Yes, exactly.
Really.
Getting a job, when the clients get jobs and they get employer authorization
Unreal.
documents, it's like, it's
Oh, yeah.
to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, well, with that, then, I want to thank all of you, Geralde, Suzanne, and Jeff, for the time you gave us and really the knowledge that you've been able to spread and to really raise our consciousness. It's one of the goals of a faith that does justice, to raise consciousness to people of goodwill and to encourage them to live what they believe in action, not just in a church, a mosque, or a temple.
Exactly.
And I want to thank our audience, too, for being with us tonight. We hope it's been helpful to you. Our Fireside Series chats will continue. We hope in January to have another meeting. We've invited Reverend Brian Hare, who has a background in really at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, really between the bridge between religion and politics. And we expect a very exciting evening from him as a way of, again, adding to this idea of raising consciousness to people of goodwill, that they're called to do more than just intellectually assent to what they believe in, but to act upon it. And so I want to mention, too, that when this conference ends, there'll be a series of slides. We ask you to just spend a moment and look at them. Our conferences or our meetings here unfold free to everyone. We have to pay for them, and basically there'll be a donation pitch, and if you can help us in any way, really reach out by increasing our capital so that we can continue to run these kinds of meetings. To do what we really propose to do is raise consciousness to all people. And so again, I will thank our audience and both our panelists for the time and for the knowledge that was spread tonight. It's been a learning experience for all of us, and I'm sure may your work continue to be as good as it is, and may you continue to grow as an organization. And don't forget about us. We're trying our best, too.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much, and we'll end it here, and hope to see you in January with our next meeting. So thank you for being here, and good luck to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.